I was a decorated general of the Kreel Dominion when I first heard the name human. To us, it was merely a word carried by static through deep space transmissions, primitive chatter from a backwater world on the spiral edge of the galaxy. Our scientists described them as carbon-based, emotional, reckless. A young species still fumbling with nuclear fire. Harmless. When I arrived in their system, I expected simplicity and easy conquest. Yet even from orbit, something about their world unsettled me. Their planet bore scars of countless wars. Yet oceans shimmered blue and forests flourished as if the world refused to die. I saw monuments beside craters, laughter beside ruins. No logic, no order. We observed one of their patrol fleets near Mars. Outnumbered and outgunned, they attacked first. Not strategically, ferociously. Their ships burned like candles, yet none fled. I remember the voice of a human pilot before his vessel exploded. If we fall, make it count. That phrase echoed in my mind for cycles. I had fought many species, cold, efficient, disciplined, but never one that fought from the heart. Humans bled, screamed, and sang through their own destruction. They turned chaos into a weapon. When I reported my findings to the Dominion Council, they laughed. They are primitives, they said. Emotion makes them weak. But as I watched their burning fleet drift silently across the void, I realized something terrible. Emotion does not make them weak. It makes them unstoppable. That was the moment I felt the first spark of fear. Not for my soldiers, not for my empire. For the first time in all my campaigns, I fear the enemy. And the enemy's name was human. The Dominion expected the humans to surrender quickly. They always do, the Council said. Occupy their colonies, seize their resources, and they will kneel. But humans do not kneel, they bite. Our first invasion fleet descended upon the colony world New Eden, a small outpost circling a dying star. The planet's defenses were primitive by our standards. We jammed their communications, shattered their orbital stations, and broadcast a demand for capitulation. Their response came seconds later. A missile barrage launched from civilian ships. Farmers, miners, and engineers had turned their transports into weapons. They should have been afraid. Instead, they laughed through the comms as their ships burned. If you want our world, one human captain shouted, come, take it from the ground. We did, and we paid dearly for it. The humans fought like creatures possessed. Their soldiers hid in tunnels, striking from smoke and ruins. Every village became a fortress, every civilian a saboteur. My soldiers complained that they could never rest. Humans attacked at night, in storms, even when outnumbered 100 to 1. They did not fight to win. They fought to make us bleed. I remember one captured soldier, his body half-burnt, whispering as he died, "We don't fear death. We've lived beside it too long." That was the day the Kreel understood the truth. War to humans was not an event. It was a state of being. They were born from conflict, forged in it, and they carried it in their blood. We came to conquer. Instead, we awakened something ancient and furious. The spark of war had ignited, and it burned brighter than any star. Arcani's prime was humanity's pride, a thriving colony world, rich in oceans and steel. When the Dominion fleet arrived, we expected swift victory. Our ships blotted out their skies. Our troops descended like storms. Yet what we found below was not panic. It was preparation. The humans had already evacuated their children and elders. Those who remained were soldiers, engineers, and volunteers armed with crude weapons but unshakable resolve. They had painted slogans across their walls: no retreat, no surrender. I thought it arrogance. Soon I learned it was prophecy. The first week, they hit us with drones made from farming equipment. The second week, they sabotaged our supply lines and poisoned our fuel. By the third week, they were fighting from rubble, starving, coughing, bleeding, yet never yielding. When we finally cornered their leader, a woman named Commander Hale, she smiled through bloodied lips. "You think this world is yours now?" she said. "You haven't even seen us angry." Days later, our sensors detected massive radiation spikes. They had armed their own fusion cores. Before I could order evacuation, the The horizon turned white. The humans destroyed their own city, their own people, just to deny us victory. Even from orbit, I watched the explosion spread like dawn. Silence filled my command deck. Not even my war-hardened officers spoke. I had seen countless species fight to live. Only humans fight to die well. That day, we marked Arcani's Prime as conquered territory. But no one among us dared celebrate. We had won the planet and lost our certainty. For the first time, I began to wonder if victory against humanity was even possible. After Arcani's Prime, the war changed. My soldiers no longer spoke of glory, only survival. They called the humans shadows in the smoke, demons in the dark. I dismissed it as fear. Then I saw them myself. At the Cassial Rift, we dug trenches across the desert moon to hold the line. The humans attacked without pause, wave after wave, day after day. They had no air support, no armor, only grit and desperation. When our scanners showed their casualties surpassing 50%, I expected retreat. Instead, they advanced. Our rifles tore through their ranks, yet they kept coming, dragging the wounded forward, patching them with sealant foam, shoving rifles into their hands again. I remember one human, missing an arm, charging with a grenade clutched to his chest. He smiled as he detonated it. My troops screamed his name afterward, as if honoring him. Captured prisoners unnerved us more. They laughed during interrogation. One even thanked me for sparing him, though I hadn't. "We fight for each other," he said. "Not for orders. That's why you'll never break us." That night, I couldn't sleep. I dreamed of their faces, bloodied, grinning, unyielding. My officers requested psychological shielding, fearing the humans' battle cries were some form of sonic weapon. They weren't. They were hope-made sound, and it was louder than any gunfire. When dawn came, the trenches were quiet. Thousands of human corpses lay among ours, but their flags still fluttered in the wind. I realized then what made them terrifying. They do not fear pain. They embrace it. They do not fight to live. They fight so others can. And no empire can truly defeat that. By the 5th year of war, the Dominion's confidence had rotted into desperation. Humanity was supposed to be broken, yet every defeat only made them stronger. Every weapon we used, they studied. Every tactic we devised, they learned. They adapted faster than logic allowed. The Kreel Council authorized Operation Final Dawn, total extermination. No prisoners, no mercy. I led the campaign myself, believing it would end the madness. Instead, I found new horrors. Our fleets began vanishing in the void. Entire armadas lost without distress signals. Then came the stories of human infiltrators, unseen and unstoppable. They called themselves the Ghost Division. They breached ships in silence, cutting through hulls like shadows. Over comms, we'd hear laughter before the attack, mocking, fearless laughter. Fear spread faster than plague. My soldiers refused to sleep. Some swore they saw human faces in their dreams. Others heard voices whispering through the ship's metal. The Dominion called it hysteria. I called it the beginning of our end. On Vestra 9, the Ghost Division struck my flagship. I didn't try to capture it. They tore it apart from within. I watched them on the monitors, humans covered in soot and blood, moving with machine-like precision. Yet their eyes burned with something no machine could mimic: fury. We won that battle, technically. The humans withdrew after crippling half our fleet. But as I stood amid the wreckage, I understood what we had unleashed. They were no longer fighting for planets or survival. They were fighting for vengeance. And vengeance gives purpose sharper than any blade. That day, I stopped calling them savages. That day, I began to call them what they truly were: predators. The war reached its climax at Orion's Gate, a massive fortress station guarding the last hyperspace corridor into human territory. If we took it, the war would end. That was what the Dominion promised us. I believed them. My fleet, 10,000 warships, surrounded the station. The humans inside numbered less than 50,000. Their commander transmitted a single message before we began bombardment: "You may take the gate, but you'll never pass through it." For 3 days they held. We rained plasma and kinetic fire until the void itself burned red. Their shields failed, their oxygen reserves dwindled, yet no surrender signal came. When our boarding teams breached the hull, they found corridors lined with explosives and soldiers waiting behind them, smiling. We fought room to room. Every corner bled. Then our sensors detected a surge from the station's core. The humans had overloaded their own reactors. My officers screamed for retreat, but it was too late. The explosion consumed half our fleet. The light was blinding, a second sun igniting in the dark. I watched entire ships vaporize, and I thought of the commander's words. They had chosen annihilation over defeat. Among the millions lost were my family aboard a nearby transport. In that instant, all my victories turned to ash. Humanity had won nothing tangible. No planets, no spoils, but they had broken something far greater, our will to fight. The Dominion declared Orion's gate destroyed. I declared the war already over. Because you cannot conquer a species that welcomes death as a weapon. That day, amid the drifting wreckage of both fleets, I whispered the words my pride had long denied. The humans are not the enemy, they are the lesson. Years passed after Orion's gate. The war ended, though no one declared victory. The Kreel Dominion limped home, broken in body and spirit. I was captured during the retreat, taken by the very beings I had once called primitive. My cell was quiet, sterile, and bright. No torture, no chance. Just a human woman who entered each day with questions and a calm smile. She introduced herself as Dr. Evelyn Merrick, a historian, not an interrogator. "I want to understand your war," she said. At first, I refused to speak. I expected hatred, vengeance, but instead she brought me water, food, warmth, even conversation. No threats, no cruelty. She told me about her world, its losses, its hopes. And somehow, the silence between us began to crack. One day, I asked her why she showed me kindness. She tilted her head and replied softly, "Because someone has to stop the cycle." Those words shattered me more than any weapon ever could. In that moment, I realized why humans frighten me. It wasn't their strength or technology or endless resilience. It was their capacity for mercy, their ability to offer compassion to those who destroyed them. Mercy is unpredictable. Mercy defies logic. Mercy makes monsters question themselves. I told her everything, every battle, every nightmare, every scream I still heard in my sleep. She listened, not as a victor, but as someone who wanted peace. When I finished, she looked at me with something I did not deserve, empathy. And I confessed, voice trembling, "Humans terrify me, doctor, not because of what they do to their enemies, but because of what they do after." After my confession, they did not execute me. Instead, the humans transferred me to a rehabilitation center on Luna, their moon. The word rehabilitation confused me. How does one rehabilitate an enemy responsible for millions of deaths? Yet they treated me not as a prisoner, but as a patient. I was given access to their archives, centuries of wars, revolutions, disasters, and recoveries. I saw how they destroyed themselves again and again, only to rise stronger each time. No empire in the galaxy could survive such chaos, and yet humanity thrived on it. Their history was a symphony of destruction and rebirth. I studied their literature, their art, their tragedies. One phrase struck me deeply: "We fall so that we may rise again." To the Kreel, failure meant shame. To humans, failure was transformation. That philosophy terrified me more than any weapon, because it meant they could never truly be defeated. Sometimes I would watch the human soldiers at the center. They laughed together, tended gardens, and shared meals with former enemies. They spoke of forgiveness as if it were strength, not weakness. And perhaps for them, it was. I began to see the truth. Humans are not powerful because they conquer. They are powerful because they endure. Their cruelty and compassion come from the same source: the refusal to stop feeling. I wrote my memoirs then, not as a general, but as a witness. I titled them, "Why Humans Terrify Me." It was not a warning of danger. It was a confession of awe, because in the heart of every human, there burns a paradox, a fire that destroys, and yet somehow heals. Years have passed since the war ended. I no longer wear the uniform of the Kreel Dominion. Among humans, I am simply Threx, an advisor on interspecies relations. They allow me to walk their cities freely, places of light and noise, where children play beneath skies once filled with fire. Peace feels unnatural, yet somehow right. But I know my people have not forgotten. The Dominion still watches from the shadows, plotting its return. So tonight, I send one final message across the void, a transmission meant for them, not as a soldier, but as a warning. Brothers and sisters of Kreel, I begin. You believe the humans are weak because they bleed. You believe mercy is a flaw, emotional liability. You are wrong. I tell them of the battles I fought, of the worlds burned, and the courage that rose from humanity's ashes each time. I speak of Dr. Marek's kindness, of the laughter in the ruins, of forgiveness that could melt hatred itself. Do not provoke them again, I warn. They're not conquerors. They're survivors. And survival, in its purest form, is the most terrifying power in the universe. When the transmission ends, I stand before the viewing window, watching Earth turn slowly beneath me, blue, fragile, and defiant. I remember the faces of those I fought and those I lost. Once, I saw humanity as monsters wearing mortal flesh. Now, I see them for what they truly are, mirrors reflecting the best and worst of us all. I close the channel and whisper to the stars. Terrifying, yes, but perhaps they were meant to be. And for the first time in a lifetime of war, I feel peace.